Hello class, I hope you all are doing well. You're enjoying your summer holidays. Now we're going to start with the topics of 3.2 of your syllabus, which are reduction of gravity data, followed by separation of residuals, and then interpretation of gravity data. We'll start with the reduction of gravity data. Okay. So in our previous lectures we have discussed and we have learned that the reference figure of the Earth is represented by the International Reference Ellipsoid. And this International Reference Ellipsoid is what? It's the equipotential surface of the gravity of the Earth. And how do we obtain this? This is obtained by mathematical approximation, assuming that the Earth is uniform. It's the equipotential surface of the Earth for which the density remains same. The density is uniform from the surface of the Earth to the center of the Earth. Now this is just a mathematical convenience. So this reference ellipsoid is just used for our mathematical convenience, and it is just a theoretical approximation, not the actual equipotential surface of the Earth gravity. But since it represents the figure of the Earth, the shape of the Earth, and we know the Earth is rotating, and so the value of gravity changes from the equator to the poles. The value of gravity, it increases from the equator to the poles. So the variation of the acceleration of gravity on the reference ellipsoid or the oblate spheroid is given by the formula, which is the normal gravity formula. I will write the formula here. So this normal gravity formula is given by sine lambda minus 0.000059 sine lambda sine square lambda, and this is in Gauss, that is centimeter per second square. Now this is the formula for the variation of gravity with latitude on the reference ellipsoid, right? So if you put the value of lambda, and that is latitude, you will get the value of the acceleration of gravity at that latitude, but on the reference ellipsoid. Okay, now if you remember through our previous class, we know the value of gravity, or the difference in acceleration of gravity between the equator and the pole, is approximately 5186 milligal, right? Now if you put the latitudes for the pole and the equator, lambda, that is 90 degree for the poles and 0 degree for the equator, the difference in the value of gravity would be equal to around 5000 milligal for this, using this equation. Now this normal gravity formula therefore gives the value of gravity as it varies with latitude on the reference ellipsoid. So this provides us a kind of a reference for our measured gravity values. So this provides us a reference, that is something to compare with, that is our measured gravity data. We can compare our measured gravity data with the values that we obtain from this formula at any latitude. Therefore it provides a reference with which we can compare our measured gravity data. But in practice we cannot calculate, we cannot estimate the acceleration due to gravity on the reference ellipsoid. In reality, you cannot go and find the reference ellipsoid and measure the value of gravity there. So in order for us to compare our measured gravity value with the reference ellipsoid, we have to take other things into consideration. Now if you go in the field and you have to measure the value of gravity at the reference ellipsoid, it is not possible, because the measured value of gravity is influenced by other factors. The mainly two factors are the elevation and topography. So see this diagram. This is your station and this is your reference ellipsoid. Okay, now we are measuring the value of gravity here and we have to compare the value of gravity with the reference ellipsoid, right? But this measured value of gravity is affected by elevation as well as topography. Now in order to compare the measured value with the reference ellipsoid, we have to reduce this measured gravity to the reference ellipsoid. We have to bring the station from here to here so that we can compare the value of gravity here with the reference ellipsoid, removing the effects of elevation and topography. So we reduce the measured value to the reference ellipsoid by correcting for the effects of elevation and topography. So how do we reduce the measured data? So reduction or we reduce the value of measured data by correcting for the effects of topography, correcting for the effects of elevation and topography on the measured gravity data. Okay, now we have to reduce from here to here the measured value of gravity so that we can directly compare it with the reference ellipsoid. We have reduced the effect of topography as well as the elevation, so as in order to bring some meaningful interpretation, so as to bring meaningful understanding of the lateral heterogeneities in the density. Okay, because what is happening right now is that the measured value of gravity, which may be because of a difference in density, but it is also masked by the effects of elevation and topography. So we have to correct for these effect, that is correct for this effect, that is we have to bring the station from here onto the reference ellipsoid. We can also reduce the measured value to any other plane above the reference ellipsoid, and this can be referred to as a datum plane. The principle remains the same whether you are reducing it to the datum plane or the reference ellipsoid. Now we will first consider the effects of topography. Okay, so first we'll start with the topography or terrain correction. And this is also referred to as topographic correction. Now let me draw in another diagram here, which is, oh sorry, just a minute. So this is your station here. Okay, in the vicinity of station there are irregularities in topography. So we have a hill and we have a depression or a valley. We have to reduce this station, the measured value at the station, to the reference ellipsoid or any datum. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll correct for the effects of hill and the valleys. Now if you look at here, this hill lies above the station, so the center of mass of this hill is situated somewhere above the station. So what this hill does, it results in an upward gravitational attraction. So if we have a gravimeter here which is measuring the vertical component of gravity, this hill exerts an upward component which counteracts on the downward pull of the gravity, which is measured here by the gravimeter, right? So there it introduces, this hill introduces an upward component because of the mass in the hill, it is attracting the gravimeter towards itself. It exerts a gravitational attraction towards itself, introducing an upward component which counteracts with the downward gravity. Okay, so this means here the value of gravity measured at the station decreases because of the effect of the hill. Now, how do we compensate for this correction? What we do, we calculate the gravitational attraction of the mass present in this hill. Okay, and so we add to the value we have of the measured gravity value at the station. So in order to compensate for the effects of the hill, we add the gravitational attraction because of the hill or any positive relief, because this in fact is reducing the value of gravity at the measured station. Okay, now if you look at the depression or a valley, now here the pull of gravity at the station because of this depression would be less. Why? Because there is deficiency of mass. So what we do, we imagine filling this depression with the rock of same density, that is rho. Okay, so that now the value of gravity increases. Initially the value of gravity was less because there was deficiency of mass, because there was no mass. So we imagine filling this whole depression with the rock of density rho. Okay, so the value of gravity would increase if you fill this depression. So in both the cases, that is for compensating for the effects of hill and values of depression, what we have to do is we have to add the gravitational attraction because of the hill and the material that we imagine to be filling the depression or the valley. So in both the cases, whether it is topographic positive relief or topographic negative relief, we add the topographic correction on the measured value of gravity. So topographic correction is always positive. Topographic correction is always positive. So what we are here doing is we are leveling the topography surrounding the station to the same elevation as the station. So this equivalent becomes to something like this. So this is our station and this is our reference ellipsoid. So this becomes something like this. This is our station, this is our reference ellipsoid. We have successfully, what we have done, we have corrected for the effects of the hill and the valleys. Okay, so now what we know, that the terrain correction or the topographic correction is always added to the measured gravity value. That is whether it is because of the hill and whether it is because of the valley or depression, because in both the cases here the value of gravity is decreasing because of the topographic relief, that is because of the hill and because of the depression. Because of the hill there is an upward component and therefore the value of gravity decreases. Because of the valley, because of the depression, the value of gravity here is less. So in either case what we have to do, we have to add the topographic correction or the terrain correction. Understood? So next we'll be doing is the correction for the effects of the elevation, right? Elevation. Now once we have reduced for the effects of topography, now we have the station lying here. Okay, and this is the reference ellipsoid, or we can have a datum plane. But between the station and the reference ellipsoid there lies a layer of rock, right? There's a layer of rock, and the measured value of gravity would have the effects of this layer of rock. Now this layer of rock is assumed to be of a disc shape or the shape of a plate, and the correction is known as Boger plate correction. Okay, So this is the reference ellipsoid and this is our station. The measured value of gravity would incorporate the gravity due to this layer, this fictive layer, which is the Boger plate. Now if this station lies above the sea level, the value of gravity here would be more because of the layer. So in order to reduce it to the reference ellipsoid, if the station lies above the sea level, we have to subtract the Boger plate correction from the measured value of gravity. That is, we have to subtract the Boger plate correction from the measured value of gravity if the station lies above the sea level, or you can say the reference ellipsoid. So the Boger plate correction is negative if the station lies above sea level. Understood? Now suppose this station was not here, the station was somewhere here, and this is your reference ellipsoid. Again, now the effect of the Boger plate, or you can say the effect of no mass being present here, we have to compensate for the effect of this layer which should be present between the reference ellipsoid and the station. And so if it lies below the sea level, the Boger plate correction is added. If it is below the sea level, if the station is below the sea level. Now we'll see in your next subunit, that is 3.3, how do we calculate the Boger plate correction? How do we actually calculate the Boger plate correction, or what is the derivation of the Boger plate correction in the next 3.3. Here we are dealing just with the principles of the reduction. Okay, so here we do negative. This Boger plate correction is negative if the station lies above the sea level, and it's positive if it lies below the sea level, and it usually amounts to about 0.1, I think it's 0.1, it should be 0.1, yeah, it's 0.1 milligal per meter. Okay, so keep this in mind. We'll obtain this value later in 3.3, but if you have to correct for the Boger plate correction, if the station lies above the sea level or below the sea level, we can directly multiply the value, the elevation here. See, it is given in per meter, so as to obtain how much we have to correct for the effect of the Boger plate. Okay, now the next one is we have to compensate for the elevation of the station above the reference ellipsoid. Now in this Boger plate correction, what we are doing is we are considering the effects of the mass which is present between the reference ellipsoid and between the station and the reference ellipsoid. In second one, which is the free air correction, we do not consider the effect of mass which is present between the station and the reference ellipsoid. We only compensate for the effect of the elevation of the station above the reference ellipsoid or below the reference ellipsoid. We know the gravitational attraction decreases proportionally with the square of the distance from the center of the earth. So with elevation, the value of gravity decreases. So if the station lies above the sea level, the measured gravity would be less because the station is at a higher elevation. So the free air correction, therefore, it's positive if the station lies above sea level. because the value of gravity decreases with distance from the center of the earth. Similarly, if the station lies below the sea level, the value of gravity would be greater than what we can expect at the reference ellipsoid, because it is at a less distance from the center of the earth. So the value of gravity would increase if the station lies below the sea level. There would be a higher component of gravity because of the station lying below the sea level. So we have to compensate for the effect of any station lying below the sea level by subtracting the free air correction if the station lies below the sea level. And this free air correction, if we'll see that it amounts to about 0.3 milligal per meter. Okay, now both of these two kinds of correction, that is Vogel plate correction and free air correction, they are combined into what is known as the elevation correction, or you can say combined elevation correction. And this elevation correction is combined elevation correction is 0.2 milligal. See, it's 0.3 and 0.1, and both of these corrections are opposite to each other. So what we have obtained is this value of 0.2 milligal per meter. Now if the station lies above the sea level, we have to add the elevation correction, that is 0.2 milligal. If it lies below the sea level, we have to subtract from the measured value of gravity. So now what we have done, we have corrected for the effects of elevation, we have corrected for the effects of topography. You can see here both these correction, they are dependent upon the elevation, so we have combined them together into one elevation correction. So elevation correction is the combination of free air correction and the Vogel plate correction. The free air correction or Vogel plate correction, they are always opposite. So for our convenience, we have combined these two, and so we have obtained this value directly, that is 0.2 milligal per meter, and this is added for the measured value at the gravity station if the station lies above the sea level, and subtracted if the measured gravity is at a station which lies below the sea level. Okay, now what we have done, we have effectively reduced the measured gravity to the reference ellipsoid. So this measured gravity was in practice the value in the field, right? And this is the theoretical value. This is the theoretical value of the reference ellipsoid. But now we have reduced the measured gravity to the reference ellipsoid. And now what we'll do, we'll compare the measured value of gravity with the reference ellipsoid. Now we are in a position that we can compare it with the values of the reference ellipsoid, the ellipsoid which is just a mathematical approximation, a theoretical value of the gravity at any location on the reference ellipsoid. But this is the measured gravity on the surface of the earth, anywhere on the surface of the earth, reduced to the reference ellipsoid. Okay, so we have reduced it to the reference ellipsoid. So any difference between the measured gravity and the reference ellipsoid, we'll study later, is referred to as gravitational anomaly or gravity anomaly. We'll do this in the next class. Now one thing I have to tell you is, what we are doing here is we are reducing the measured gravity at the station to the reference ellipsoid, right? But we can also correct, or you can say we can also correct the theoretical gravity value here, we can also correct the reference ellipsoid and correct this reference ellipsoid for this elevation. But in this procedure, everything would be opposite to what we have already done. So in reducing the measured gravity at this station to the reference ellipsoid will be equal to correct the reference ellipsoid to this elevation of the station. Both would be same, both are equally valid. Okay, but for our understanding, what we have learned that we are reducing the station, the measured value at the station to the reference ellipsoid. But in practice, what is actually being done, it's the opposite. That is, the value of the gravity at the reference ellipsoid is corrected to the station, is corrected to the level where we are measuring our gravity. So this can also be done. So in the next class, we'll see how after correcting, when we compare the gravitational value, measured gravitational value that we have obtained using the instrument gravimeter, and after correcting it for the effects of the elevation and topography using topographic correction and combined elevation correction, we can directly compare it with the reference ellipsoid, and any difference between these two, if difference between the two gives us the value of the gravity anomaly. And then we'll see how this gravity anomaly changes on the surface of the earth. We have two types of gravity anomalies. We'll be discussing that, and then we'll study how do we separate these gravity anomalies from the regional gravitational trend, from the regional background gravity, and how do we extract the gravitational effect because of the gravitational anomalies. And finally, we'll be interpreting the gravity anomaly or the gravitational data. This will be your 3.2. What we are doing here is we are understanding the principle of reduction of the gravity data. This whole topic we'll be discussing in detail in 3.3, which is entirely based upon corrections. Okay, but here we are dealing with the principles of the reduction. In 3.3 we're going in depth and understanding how we obtain this value of 0.1 and 0.3, and how we'll see how we measure the attraction of the hills and attraction of the valleys, so as to add them to the measured value at the station. Okay, so we'll see how we calculate the measured value, how we calculate the attraction of the masses because of the hill, and the hypothetical situation when we fill this valley with the rocks of the density same as the density as the rest of the area or the rest of the hills or between the station and the reference ellipsoid. So this was your reduction of gravity data. In the next lecture, I'll be discussing with you gravity anomalies and how do we separate the residual from the regional gravitational data or information. Okay, thank you.